What's up everyone, this is FruitSMG. So for today's video today, we're actually going to do a mini investigation on how much the company makes, in this case going to be KoG, actually makes per basis when the new ice banner initially released on the very first day. So there's a lot of variables that actually can make this calculation and assumption pretty inaccurate, because there's a lot of things such as having the most accurate amount of player count per day, and also for each player, they have variety amounts of how much they spend per ice burner on that particular day. So some of my investigation from a couple of players randomly in towns, and sometimes they're in spa areas, I actually do ask them that question, and so I got some survey numbers from roughly from 50 ice burners to the most craziest number I've seen before. It's actually 500 ice burners. So yeah, spending $500 in ice burners, that's pretty crazy, but there is always those players out there who actually want to get the entire set for themselves, or they want to try resell for ED so they can actually fund towards the later ice burst during the game. So just to start off with the player count, I actually did some research by doing some Google searches with a variety of Steam charts and also some other websites that actually do display the amount of player counts on that specific day. But however, as you can know, we can't really trust them, but probably that's the only source we can know on calculating how much player base there actually are on that day per day. So we can actually use their approximate number of either 400 players to 600 players. So probably that's a good median between those two numbers compared to the two charts I actually did some research on. So we can actually set that number as our amount of player base per day. This is basically including the low level players to the most active players that are in the game right now. And moving on to the actual amount of ice burns that's being spent, that number can be roughly estimated because each person has their own spending amount of money in their wallets on how much they're willing to spend to burn some ice burns. So some numbers can actually be variety for per person, so we can actually have to do within a range as a solution compared to having exact number that most time we're kind of used to when it comes to doing math problems in math classes and so much more. As a disclaimer, these are not actual real statistical numbers on how much they actually make, because like I said before, there's so many variables that actually does hinder the accuracy of this calculation that I will be doing. So if you guys actually do argue down in the comments, I don't blame you, but I'm just pointing this out that these numbers won't be as accurate as we all thought it would, but these numbers will actually give us a rough estimate on how much they would make as a company in that first initial day. And that's the actual goal that we actually try to get in this goal that we actually try to get. Taking that range roughly for 400 to 600 players, we can actually assume at least 100 or 150 players are willing to spend that much money in order to get ice burners. So this will actually serve as our amount of players that actually are willing to spend their money in order to get some ice burners. So moving on to the amount they're willing to spend, the actual number themselves is very hard to determine because each person has their own spending preferences on how many ice burners they are willing to burn in order to get that specific costume piece that they want to get, or actually sell those extra pieces that they don't want to the board in order to get some ED out of it from what they burn with their real money. Taking into consideration from the amount of ice burners that people willing to spend, for the lowest, we probably can go around 10 ice burners, which is roughly $10, up to the most crazy amount to what people imagine will actually be, let's say, 200 ice burners, because that's probably the most common insane amount of ice burners that people are willing to buy in order to get their pieces and all. So after doing the math with roughly 100 to 150 people willing to burn at least $10 to $200, this actually results in a rough estimation on how much the company makes on that first initial day. From the actual lowest that KoG can actually make, they can roughly make around $1,000, and for the actual best case scenario of 150 willing to buy 200 ice burners, that they can actually generate their amount of $30,000 on the initial day. So that's actually pretty a lot for a company can make because of this event, but the actual gaming company themselves has to find a way to pay for their employees. So having something like this for the players to spend on will actually generate them income in order to pay for the employees, so they can actually get paid for what they do in their game, but knowing that what they do in the game is basically moderating the game, handling customer service, translating the game from the Korean server and all, they basically have to pay all of them for that. And this event will actually do help them a lot. But not only this, but other events such as enhancement events and sales of cash items and item stuff, that also plays in a factor too in order to generate some income. So hopefully you actually enjoyed this video of finding out how much a gaming company makes of these type of sort of events where real money is involved in order to gamble for costume pieces that actually leads them to their character being the most OP of their kind of for the day. And just to note, this is only for the first initial day, but as each day goes along, that amount of money they can make per day will either increase or decrease depending on amount of players actually willing to spend money on the day in order to pull some ice sprinters. So hopefully you actually enjoyed that video. I know maybe before you actually go to throw down the comments down below, maybe you guys are going to say this number is pretty inaccurate because there's way too many things going on. I do understand that. I do point out a couple times in my video, but I actually will repeat myself again that this is only for fun and just give you some surprising statistics that actually did some observation on my end. However, if you do feel like the incentive of saying in the comments that, oh, it's like your observation is pretty inaccurate, you can do so. I understand that, but I actually will say this again, that this is only for fun only. So hopefully if you want me to do more videos like these in the future, just doing some play on how much stuff that KoG can make per basis, actually throw it down on the comments down below, and probably someday I actually will do the investigation on my own or some of my friends around me if they're willing to do that. And yeah, do look forward to seeing more good ideas down the future or other future video contents. And this is for Synergy, and I'll be sending out this video.